Hey guys, welcome back to the letter. This is CJ Gamer Girl signing on. So, last episode, we basically told Isabella about Zach's problem, and Ash came over to take her home. But before then, we had a nice meal together. The next 2 days rushed by in a blur, although altogether leaving a collective mess of work suddenly piling up and new unexpected acquaintances. Or friends? Depends on how you look at it, really. Either way, I'm stuck developing these photos at 3 in the morning to reach a deadline set by an overeager art director. Don't get me wrong, Julius is good, has a vision, and knows what he wants, but damn, he can be too enthusiastic sometimes.
Doesn't matter when you couldn't sleep anyway.
There's nothing new in it, of course. After years of working as a freelance photographer, it's simply something I've grown used to. Get to know people, build a client base, do good work, and cash in some late hours if need be. Rinse and repeat. It certainly takes a while to get some footing on the field, but it's the kind of thing that pays off in the long run, as long as you keep at it. Given enough time, you might end up with the big names as your client list. Names like the Wrights in particular. I never did pay much attention to them, but it's virtually impossible not to hear about them when the local news channel or paper has something to say on their name. A party here, acquisition there. Sometimes it's a new business venture, other times it's the everyday gossip that typically follows popular people like them. Not in a million years did I ever imagine I would end up working for such a high-profile couple. And between that and the fuss that comes with it, it leaves me no time to ponder over what happened to Isabella or why Ash is so adamant we keep away from the pair.
They do seem like the good folk, though, despite the whole fame thing.
Sure, there was a rumor running around years ago about him being involved in some business scandal. But just like every gossip blown out of proportion by the media, nothing came of it. And eventually it simply died down. Much is definitely left to be said for the husband, but I doubt a woman like Miss Wright would pick him if he doesn't have any good points at all. Miss Wright. Hannah herself, though. She ain't particularly bad the way the press makes her out to be. The tabloids had it all wrong, that's for sure. For someone born with a silver spoon in her mouth, well, she ain't exactly what I was expecting. Among other things, the newfound friendship is what I least expected from her, but here we are. Although with a life as public as the Wrights, no wonder it's the woman who often gets the crappy end of the stick. I can't help but feel sorry for her. She's a real nice person when given the chance. Heck, she might have even ended up friends with Rebecca and Isabella too if they weren't living worlds apart. Probably. The beep quickly pulls me back before my thoughts travel any further. In one practiced motion, I carefully place the wet print I'm holding on the drying rack, and amble over to my makeshift darkroom to get the last of the photos from the water bath. Inside the converted broom closet, the film processor lets out another soft clack before going on its standby mode. At its mouth, a lone photograph sits on the tray, barely visible with the lack of light. It's the last one tonight for the set Mrs. Wright requested. I usually don't make this a habit, giving away stuff, that is. It's bad for business, no matter how well-intentioned or generous you are. This exception, however, she did treat me well, and was a pleasant companion all throughout the shoot. Even if she didn't ask, I probably would have given her a few prints just for the hell of it. Miswriting is such a bad subject matter to begin with. And maybe this is just me, but for someone who has everything at the palm of her hands, all the money in the world, a loving husband, and a plenty big mansion to call home, she's lonely. She doesn't just appear like it. It shows in the tone of her voice, how she moves, and most certainly in her smiles. Always hidden behind the glamour for the world to never see. Sometimes with people like her, small things like these help. A little reminder, the world can be kind, too. Water drips from the paper as I blindly pick it up. and gently lay it on another tray holding a decent amount of photo flow. A few seconds under the solution is all it needs before it's ready for drying. No good brushing this last one, even if my body's already screaming for some decent snooze. My hand fumbles for the light switch, moving towards it with familiarity, while I fish for a squeegee among the mess of tools on a drawer with the other. The bulb flickers twice before the glow settles and casts a soft light in the tiny space. When I glance back down, squeegee in hand, ready to finish the process and finally call it a night...
What on earth?
Her head is gone. That is freaky. Blurred and distorted beyond recognition, rather. The area had completely smudged over, leaving no trace of the same sweet smile the good woman carried in all the previous prints.
Damn, that was too careless.
A common mistake to make, of course, if one is negligent enough to pick a newly processed photo in the dark, like I apparently did. It has happened before. Loads of times, actually. But I still can't help but feel a small pain of frustration over one mistake a newbie would likely make. With a sigh, I reach up for the switch again, intending to develop a new one from scratch.
It could pass off for one of those supernatural pictures they show on TV, though.
A memory clicks. One cursory thought in a sea of many. In a short yet distinct second from the day before. A glimpse is all I got, but it's enough to burn the image in my mind. There was a shadow. No. A woman. In her 20s, maybe early 30s, maybe. But with how far gone her flesh alone has become, it's not possible to tell at first glance. The skin itself has already taken a sickly pale color, rotten in most parts, blood dripping from every open gash and lesion on our body. Bony hands grip Mrs. Wright's neck like a noose, staining the skin underneath with a vibrant shade of scarlet. Nothing but malice fills the gleam in her eyes.
Zachary?
Not for me, but for Miss Wright.
Zach, is something the matter?
Oh, no, there's nothing wrong. I just remembered something, that's all. Let's get back to the pictures. Can you move a bit more to the left, yeah?
The memory alone is enough to make me retch. I brush it off then. Trick of the eye, I told myself, or a product of the heat. The weather has been unexpectedly warm recently, so it shouldn't be too surprising for such things to happen. And, well, blaming this unusual fatigue, an overworked brain, the weather, or an amateur error on my part is far more convenient. Makes a whole lot of sense than what the small voice inside my head whispers. The same tiny voice only makes itself known when something's afoul. The same one that lent a curious ear to Isabella's worries about the mansion. And with each second I spend staring at this photograph, the murmurs in my head only grow louder against my ears. Someone has to know. I don't want to spook Hannah. Let's show the photo to Ash. Ash will give me flack for this. He will. I can already hear what he's going to say about this the moment I bring it up. Hell, before he even sees anything, I'll wager. This guy's a skeptic through and through. It won't take more than my account for him to even consider this. But when you've been there, seen something enough to raise the hairs at the back of your neck and leave you wanting to flee or hide, what do you think is the least of my concerns? I'm no hero. That's a title best reserved for someone else. Still, if this will help him change his mind, it's worth a try. Isabella's gone and done the same thing, didn't she? Outside, the sun's yet to rise. I've still got a few hours before dawn. Good enough time to mull over how I'll go about this with him. Plenty of space to check if I'll get the same result if I redo the process again. The film processor hums back to life at my touch. The light switch gives out a soft click, and darkness embraces the small closet again.
Somehow those urban legends don't sound so silly now.
Sometimes, I wish Ash would make himself easier to find. 24 messages, 13 phone calls, and 1 visit to his flat later, I still have no idea which rug in Luxburn he went to hide under again. The guy has his own place, but refuses to stay in it. Has his own phone, but doesn't answer any of his calls or gives any indication he's gotten my messages. Most of the time, he'll just show up on my front door. But sometimes in the middle of the night, complaining how uncomfortable it is to sleep at the back of his car. As if the old couch in my flat is any better. Nothing new from him, though, but a bit frustrating, really. There's the police precinct, of course. Then again, he's not there most of the time either, and if that's also true for today, he's likely out on another stakeout. There's nothing much to do for me but to wait if that's the case.
Let's just hope I'm lucky enough today.
While Luxborn is a relatively peaceful city, boasting a low crime rate, its precinct stays abuzz with activity. As soon as I open the glass front doors, murmurs come from the people waiting in the lobby welcome me. Officers can occasionally be seen shuffling about in and out the rooms, greeting civilians with a casual smile and polite nod. Some, though, look a little worse for wear, like their receptionist, who looked at me with much disdain as the moment I arrived. Thankfully, I won't have to deal with them today. Before I could even step in, Ashton's voice, though low, comes from the hallway adjacent to the lobby.
Not even for just 1 minute?
No. The case was dismissed, remember?
You were the one handling that case.
If you want access to those records, you've got to ask Chief. I was taken off it before shit went to hell. Why do you even bother? Even Professor Clark seems to have given up on that.
Well, Never mind, you won't understand.
Right. I know you owe Professor Clark a lot, but the right guy isn't just someone you mess with. They've got the money. Who knows what else gets swept under the rug with them involved?
That takes a special kind of ignorant not to know.
And a smart person to know which boundaries he can't cross. You're a bright guy, you'll figure it out. In any case, I've got to get going. Another missing person case on my hand. Benjamin on the front desk looks like he's about to maul someone after the 4th one yesterday. Murders, people missing, what a time to be alive. Man, I miss the old Luxburn.
You and me both. I'll see you. Gonna go grab some lunch.
He notices me first as soon as he enters the lobby and pauses. Confusion briefly crosses his face until I fish out the phone from my pocket and wave it up. Frowning, he pulls his own mobile out, wordlessly fiddling with it for a few seconds before sighing heavily. There ain't any annoyance in him when he glances up, though. Only mild exasperation and what might be a hint of amusement.
Stop taking pointers from Isabella. This is gonna get old soon.
At least use your phone properly.
It's an alarm clock, a good note-taking device, a halfway decent camera, and maybe a music player too. If I'm being nice. What else do I need it for?
I don't know, keeping in contact maybe?
When he merely shrugs, I know I've struck a chord. He's far from holding a piece of technology in contempt, of course. Ash has always been nothing but practical from the start, and technology is useful. Only, when he gets too focused on one thing like a case he's handling, he tends to forget there are other things around him. A little reminder and a nudge in the right direction can get him a long way.
I've got an email on that social media site the girls roped us into joining.
That doesn't make any sense. Also, you've got an account before any of us had one.
For policing purposes? Anyway, why are you here? I thought you have something scheduled today. Or was that yesterday?
That was yesterday. Look, about that, there's something I want you to see.
He stops me with a tap on my shoulder, walks past me straight to the door, and gestures with his head towards the very irked receptionist when I raise an eyebrow and question.
Over lunch. I haven't eaten anything since last night, and Benjamin there doesn't really like loiterers around here.
Wordlessly, I follow after him, but not after sending the poor guy behind the table an apologetic smile. As expected, he takes a seat in the farthest corner of the cafe. Good way from the window, but easily allows a view of who comes and goes. Secluded enough not to be disturbed by the lunch hour rush or be overheard by a curious bystander. If I didn't know this is lunch he invited me to, I'd automatically assume I got dragged into another stakeout. After years of knowing him, though, this has simply become one of the many habits I've gotten used to. Food arrives minutes later. A slice of their vegetarian quiche for me. Meanwhile, Ashton has opted for a cup of coffee plus a gracious serving of...
You having cake for lunch?
He shrugs and then proceeds to dig in without even a hint of remorse. Frankly, it's like seeing a child get his Christmas present early.
Don't tell Becca. I'll get an earful. It's just for today.
You should listen to her, though. The kind of work you do, you'll need to eat something other than sweets. I don't want to see you drop dead in front of my apartment again.
I told you, just this once. Have you been hanging out with Becca lately? You're beginning to sound like her.
Nah, just for some recipes. But she has the right to worry, you know? It's like she's taking care of 2 kids. One bitches on sweets, while the other on cup noodles. At least Bella knows how to cook.
Hey, I can at least boil something. Wait, that's easy, right? I mean, you just put water in and...
Oh my god. How have you survived this long?
No, don't even think about it. You destroyed your own kitchen once by sticking a pressure cooker on it. I think my sister is a whole lot better than you. And this is coming from someone who has no other choice but to eat her cooking for some time.
To be fair, he genuinely appears offended at that last remark. Hate will be too strong of a word to describe how Sis and him usually interact whenever they're in the same room. Though, whatever appropriate word it is, I can say with most certainty that feeling's mutual for both. Ash thinks she nags too much, while Sis thinks he's a trouble magnet I should stay away from. They're both technically right on their assessments.
How's your sister, by the way? Still bullying white guys?
What should I say? She's married to one now.
You do know she's married to one now.
I hope she doesn't end up poisoning him with her cooking.
Pot calling the kettle black?
She can't be better than me.
Actually, she is now. They're planning to start a restaurant sometime in the future.
I was bedridden for days after eating some of the stuff she whipped up. And now you're letting her cook for other people?
Don't exaggerate. It was just for one day, and you're the one who refused to leave your apartment. You should come by, though. Sis gave birth a few days ago. Girl, I've only seen the pictures. But I might visit sometime after everything's settled down. Too many backlogs to go through for now.
No way in hell. She'll just find something to criticize again. Last time, it was Shirley.
He makes a show of being utterly mortified, though I'm quite sure he doesn't mean any of that. He may not say it straight out, but I'm pretty sure he's enjoying the small visits whenever he can. Something about it reminds him of his own family. Sort of like making up for the one he never got back after his parents separated. Sore spot, that one topic. One thing he never ever brings up in any conversation if he can help it, and I've never seen the need to be nosy. There are some wounds you're just not meant to open, and for both of us, the sentiment goes the same way.
As if you ain't already on a shit list. You're just afraid of her.
In your dreams. But I'll think about it. Can't just drop this thing at the moment.
His change in tone is subtle, but his aggravation over the matter hangs completely palpable in the air.
Still no closer?
The opposite, actually. There's been some slip-ups here and there. Careless mistakes, and let's just say I'm waiting for him to make another one. What about you? How are things on your end?
All piled up on top of the other. But I can manage. Still recovering from the expenses for the movie, so the surge in new projects helps. Well, there's this one thing.
The expression on his face grows more puzzled with each photo I spread on the table. There's about 8 of them. All of it reprints of the same thing. Mrs. Wright's distorted head on the photos. He takes a minute to go through each, eyeing the prints warily. The furrow on his brow doesn't ease even as he gathers all of it into one pile and sets them in one neat stack in front of me with a heavy sigh.
Hannah Wright?
Yeah. How did you...
The locket. She never takes it off. Evan's family heirloom.
I wouldn't even think about asking why or how he knows that. If he's investigating them, he'll likely have already dug up every unimaginable dirt on them, including family history.
Are you done with your work with them?
Yesterday, yeah. It's just a small feature for a magazine. Interviews, photos, standard stuff, nothing big. But see, here's the thing. I don't know how else to put this out there without sounding crazy, but there really is something odd with that place. Remember the letter?
He drags in a breath, reaches up his nose and pinches it. Like the action alone will help grant him all the patience in the world to continue this conversation.
Please tell me this isn't about that again.
No, Ash, you've got to listen this time.
I am listening, and I can't believe that just came out of your mouth. These are some blurred out photos, and that letter is just a stupid prank. I expected this from Isabella, not you.
You're the photographer here. I don't see any need to get worked up over this.
I know what you mean, but will you hear me out first?
Ash leans back on his seat and doesn't say anything further. He gestures for me to continue with a wave of his hand, impatience clearly on his face. And the other person telling him this, and he'll walk out without batting an eye. I suppose the only reason he's giving me the benefit of the doubt is because we know each other.
Ash, I don't easily buy into these things as much as you do. Yesterday, though, behind Hana.
He blinks at that, his eyebrow lifting momentarily before setting into a deep frown.
Hana? Since when were you on a first-name basis with the right missus?
Why does that even matter?
I thought you said this was just a gig.
His voice stays level, but the accusation in it is as clear as day. It hits a nerve in me, somehow. More than that tone usually does. I do get where he's coming from, but that's not the point here! Of all things I said, my connection to the rights is the first thing he points out. As much as I want to keep my own annoyance at bay, I can't stop it from seeping into my voice.
That's completely beside the point here, Ash.
I warned you, Zach.
I get it, all right? But you can't just expect me to turn it down after I made a commitment to a client. I've got to put food on my table.
I didn't say you shouldn't, but you should not be messing with them.
I wasn't messing with them.
And this isn't?
He waves the photos in front of me before dropping the pile on the table with a loud smack. I don't need to look to know where we've already attracted some attention from the lunchtime crowd. Besides, turning away from him feels almost the same as admitting he's right. There are things more important than his damn case right now. I wish he'd see that.
It was a job, and that ain't how these photos were intended to come out. You think I'd go out of my way just to edit something like this? There's something weird going on here.
And you think Luke Wright will see it that way? You think the Wright missus will find it amusing?
I did not do this for my amusement, Ash. People's lives might be at stake here.
If you understood that in the first place, we wouldn't be having this stupid talk. Luke fucking Wright is a dangerous man, Zach. Keep hanging around them and you'll find yourself burnt to a crisp in your apartment or floating down a river 3 days later. This case is...
Will you stop talking about the damn case for once and just listen to me? Why do you think Isabella's...
Don't you dare bring her into this. We're talking about you and this stupid...
Oh, of course you don't want to talk about it. Because you're fucking afraid there's some damn truth to what she's saying now that there's two of us.
Every expression drains from his face as soon as the words are out of my mouth. They've hit their mark. Each utterance scathed, sharp with nothing but anger and the truth. Yet, there are also things I won't typically say out loud in good company, and rather ease people into it before letting it fall. Almost immediately, a wave of regret washes over me.
Ash, dude, that ain't what I meant to.
You said enough, Zach.
Without another word, he stands at his chair scraping loudly against the floor, all while my brain races to find something to fix this. Ours ain't a fragile friendship by any means. I like to think we've gone past the stage when we find everything the other says insulting. But there are times when the letters and phrases alone can cut deeper than any blade. Mine might even leave a scar. He doesn't let me, however. Instead, he sets a card in front of me. The name's familiar. When Mr. Cloud remorse swirling inside my head, I can't bring myself to recall where I've seen it.
You shouldn't be running blind. Call this guy. He'll be less inclined to shout at you. Might even talk some sense into you.
I don't see his face when he leaves. And it's only when the store's bell chimes again do I breathe. Of all the places, it never crossed my mind I'll end up walking into the public library today, considering I rarely ever visited. Somehow, there's always been this kind of disconnect between me and books in general. Sure, some of them held my attention in my youth during the brief times of the day I was left to my own with nothing to do. I went through the whole of Grant's collection, as a matter of fact. Read them all twice or thrice even. But they never did hold it for long. Most of it never even sticked. Especially after I learned it's simply easier to do things myself if I want to learn stuff. This ain't the plan in the first place. But after that argument, I really don't have any other choice. Nothing but quiet greets me, though. Not the typical mom one would associate with a library, but one akin to a hush prior to an impending trouble. Or perhaps I'm just overthinking again. I really like to think I'm just thinking too much about this. That this is just the lack of sleep talking. Regardless, apart from a group of students murmuring in a corner somewhere, the place is free of usual visitors. All while my footsteps echo in a manner unsettling enough to raise the hairs at the back of my neck. Much to my relief, it does not take me long to find him, being the only occupant in this side of the room. Professor Andrew Clark. I've never personally met the man, but Ash has spoken highly of him several times. In fact, he is Ash's go-to guy when something's troubling him with the case. My steps are unsure as I approach. At any rate, he greets me with a warm smile, like a grandson he hasn't seen in a long time.
Ashton's friend, I take it. Zachary. You'll have to forgive this old man if I don't get your name right.
Oh, no, you got it. It's Zach. Zachary Steele, Professor Clark.
He gestures at the empty seat across the table while he returns to his books. The next couple of minutes pass in relative silence as he continues to read and take notes from the pile he's accumulated on the table. Maybe I should have taken a book first before heading here. But before I can even get far into that idea, the professor clicks the book shut and sets it atop the stack next to him.
Ashton told me you were hoping to get answers from me.
At my confused look, he lets out a small chuckle.
He sent a message ahead. A friend needs to have some sense knocked into him. In verbatim. That boy never changes.
I wasn't really expecting he'd do that.
Although I'm not quite sure what I could share, I'll do my best to help.
Of course, there are a lot of things I want to ask. How do we get out of this mess is the first among tens, hundreds of concerns in my head. But in the presence of someone I barely know, the thoughts won't easily form. He's nothing but patient, however, and with enough time to mull over, a question finally forms.
Do you believe in the paranormal, Professor?
It's supernatural, actually. Don't worry. It's a common mistake to make. But they really are two different things. The other one deals with what we can't explain at the moment, while the other are things we may not have an explanation to. Here.
He places a couple of papers in front of me. The very same one he was writing on earlier. A study of Luxborn's supernatural culture in a nutshell.
A friend of mine wrote that a few years ago. He took interest in the city after reading about the stories. I have to agree with him here. Even stories dealing with things you don't see with the naked eye can be rife with culture, and this city thrives on it. Just ask the locals.
Like ghosts, for example.
Among other things. The interpretation has changed over the years, though. Various religions, for example, have their own version. It might not always be a spirit now. It could be a memory, or an imprint, an echo, so to speak. Some are born from curses, even. Out of great anger, hatred, or pain. There was this one story. Here it is.
Another book is pulled out from the stack and placed open atop the papers. While he speaks with such passion that it makes me wonder if some part of him believes these to be true. It is interesting, though, even if I'm personally not a fan of such stories. And soon, hours pass without my notice.
In the end, it asked for something to be sacrificed in order to destroy whatever anchors the wraith. A sad tale, that one. But the simplest grudge can bring the ugliest, even in the kindest person, with some people none the wiser. Oh, I'm sorry. I just went on.
Nah, it's good. Are you familiar with the Ermengarde Mansion, though?
Of course. That goes without saying. Who hasn't heard of the local legend? In fact, you aren't the first one to ask me about that recently. Although, word of the mouth is, someone has already bought it.
Ah, yeah. The right couple. It was a close friend who handled that sale.
So I heard. Well, don't think the house being bought by anyone would stop us from talking about it. What is it about the mansion, then?
I just want to ask what you think of it, sir.
We're going to need more than an afternoon for that, young man. You see, it's the kind that has changed over the years, passed down from one person to the next. Sometimes, it's the Lord William who haunts the place. There are versions where it's the lady of the house. But my favorite, a personal favorite, would have to be the ones that followed after the disappearance of the kind daughter.
Well, what about these then?
There was a moment of hesitation on my part before I pull out Miss Wright's photos and lay them all in front of him. Unlike Ash, though, the professor inspects each print with great interest. That gives me some hope, at least.
When were these taken?
Just the other day. Do you think those are the same?
Perhaps. Perhaps not. There were certainly instances when the film would pick up what the human eyes weren't able to see. But then, it could also have been human error.
I didn't edit it in any way. You have my word on that, Professor. They all just came out like that.
Then, if it is what you're thinking, I'd strongly advise against doing something reckless and further tangling with them. Accounts about them may be riveting to you, but most of it often ends in an unpleasant manner.
What about those people in the house? If there is something in there, shouldn't they know? I'm sure they're already familiar with the legends, but...
Some people might deserve it, however.
Deserve what, sir?
All of a sudden, the tenderness in the professor's eyes disappears, his face becoming unreadable. As though catching himself, he hastily clears his throat, gathers his books, and rises from his seat.
Professor?
I'm sorry. I just remembered something I neglected to do. You'll have to excuse me, Zachary.
All right. Do you need any help with that?
Don't let my looks fool you, son. I can still carry a few hundreds. I've been doing this for years. I'll see you some other time if you have any other questions.
Of course.
Yeah. That ain't suspicious at all. Are you involved with this somehow?
It was nice knowing you, Professor.
He doesn't hear it, however. In a few short strides, he's out of the library, leaving me in every piece of this whole mess amidst the oppressive stillness. Despite the answers gleaned, more questions surfaced. If there is even a single way out of this, I hope we find it soon. I'm gonna end the episode there. That was really, really concerning, the way he acted at the end there. Somehow, it makes me feel like he's the cause of it. Like, maybe he did something to summon the spirit. But to target... What? It sounds like everything that Ash and the professor are talking about, mostly Ash, something is up with Luke. And Hana is just unfortunately caught in the middle of it. So, we'll see what happens in the next episode. Till then, this is the Gamer Girl, signing off. Bye-bye.